A very good friend of mine is Ilya, who is co-founder of OpenAI and perhaps one of the most influential figure in everything that you have seen in the LLM space, GPT-3, ChatGPT, and all that. And we were just chatting, and I'm like, let me experiment with some of the stuff that he's doing. And we started encoding layout on large language models, and we saw great results without fine tuning. And I said, like, customers aren't like sending data outside. These are going to be very problematic sort of endeavor. I talked to him and he said, let's just talk about some partnership and we can figure out how to make this work. And that's when I know well, he connected me with the partnership team of OpenAI and we figured out like how to get access to their model so that no data is ever retained. They cannot learn from it and all of the legal, stuff that we needed to get done. And so we were doing the experiments most of the 2022. And once the results came good, we decided to now take a very clear stand that, and it's a controversial stand because I think there is just a lot of cool stuff that's happening in the open source community that a fewer large language models will dominate rather than having multiple fine-tuned stuff. In fact, we wrote that fine-tuning is not going to be the future, and companies that will invest in like community of large number of smaller models may not be the future. And that's where we basically fully invested on AI Hub. And AI Hub basically had some controversial bets, and I hope those turn out to be true. But we encoded those things, and the key idea here is now, given the AI Hub is publicly available, anybody can go and play with it. Now we can open it for the third party developers and all that. And I think you talked about this question of some of the core questions that basically came, which we sort of like addressed with about data privacy and security. But then there was another question of trust and hallucination, right? Like with LLMs. And how do you make that work? So we did a lot of work, and I'm not to make it the IP constraints. I cannot give you everything, but I'll give you the high level. So we did a ton of work on fixing hallucination, and I'll give you the rationale, how we approach it. A lot of people believe that hallucination is because these large language models sometimes don't know how to reason things well. Our experiments suggest that is not the reason. Just think of what these large language models are. They encode two things. One is they learn how to reason about the world. Second, they compress all of the knowledge that exists in the world into that neural network because that's how they're able to give you the answer. I believe that this compression is very lossy. That means when you compress all of the knowledge in the world, you lose many of the relations. It's like Google Index, right? It compresses all of the knowledge in the world, but you only have the which document contains what words and what order kind of. You lose a lot of the information. So this is so the compression in many cases are lossy, right? It's very hard to find lossless compression. So what if you don't compress things? It is not possible for the internet, but let's say I'm working on a folder of documents, or let's say somebody applied for a loan that's going to submit 20 documents. What if on the fly you can create embedding and the reason of that knowledge, which is not compressed, right? Because now that is just created, and then reason on that uncompressed representation. And if you do that, you will not get, but so you're bounding the knowledge to be only that, and you will not get the hallucination problem. So and I was surprised at use cases that people have figured out. So I was in India and we were talking to some press. And there was this guy who does this mental health counseling, and he says he looked at ChatGPT, he was very excited, and then he wanted to expose some of those things as a conversational app on phone for his customers where they can talk about mental health and they can get the right advice. But he said, I have no control over what answers ChatGPT is going to give. And that's not what I want. I've written this 15 books and last 10 years of notes. I want everything to come from that and nothing outside that. And that's what in Instabase you can do that, right? Now you basically created the representation of those embeddings and the knowledge that it just based on that data set. And if you basically force that the reasoning cannot go beyond that bounded representation, will not hallucinate. Now, how do you do that? It's a hard problem. So I'll not get into the technical details, but there's a way to, so I think the hallucination problem would continue to exist when you are looking at the knowledge, basically the entire internet. But there is a way to address hallucination when you bound the domain to something a lot more controlled.